that reading for me has been always a very special pleasure. And if you are reading for pleasure, then you are lucky. A young person from the audience stood up and said, "Man, every day there are so many photographs. Everyone is photographing. How does one become a good photographer?" And she said simply, read. I don't think anyone can hurt the creative writer as much as that creative writer can hurt themselves by stabbing each word, looking carefully, examining in real time. The secret is, if you are not reading, then rigor is really important. Rigor in your connection with the world, rigor in your connection with art, rigor in your connection with your response, so that you are totally aware, totally focused on what you are doing.
Everyone, welcome to Kitabi Cabins. मेरा नाम वानी है, and the following is a conversation between Jerry Pinto and myself. In case you don't know him, Jerry Pinto wears a lot of hats. He's a translator, author, poet, journalist, and once upon a time, he was also a math tutor. I am very excited for all of you to listen to the conversation we had. We talked about his process of writing, creating fearlessly, and we also took a lot of recommendations in the process. But before we jump right in, I want to give you a quick disclaimer that even though we've tried to refine the audio a lot, there are still some audio issues in the video. So for the best experience, I would recommend you turn on your subtitles. And now that you have, let's just jump right in. Hi, sir. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Jerry Pinto, and I'm delighted to be with Kitabi Cabins this morning.
Thank you for taking out the time to sit down with us. First of all, how are you? How's your day been?
Oh, wonderful so far. It's a Sunday morning, so there's been coffee and cake and lots of books.
Nice. I wanted to start with showing you a book, actually. It's one of my favorites. It's called A Velocity of Being. I don't know if you can see the book.
The velocity of being, okay.
Being. Yes. So these are letters to young readers by a lot of famous authors, Mary Oliver, Neil Gaiman, and everybody. And they have cited their reasons as to why young people should read. So, for example, one of the authors, Helen de Botton, says that you should read because not everybody in the world can understand you, and it will surprise you how much there are people who've lived before you who are struggling with the same issues. And I just wanted you to help us here with the young readers who are influenced by you. Why should they read? Especially in a day and age where, you have so many media and platforms, TV series, movies, everything is there, but why should they still read?
Okay, to begin with, I would like to say that reading for me has been always a very special pleasure. And I hope that it will be a very special pleasure for you as well. And if you are reading for pleasure, then you are lucky and you are safe because your growth is almost sure. Now, this is a question that was asked to me by a young man in a filmmaking class where I was delivering a lecture on from the word to the screen, how movies move from words into images and music and all the rest of it. And he put up his hand and he said, what if you don't like reading? Everyone comes here and says reading. Reading is the answer, reading is the answer. What if you don't like reading? And there was a part of me that wanted to say, there's too bad. You just... And then I thought, no, that's not the way a teacher replies. That's the way a cynic replies. So a teacher has to have faith. So I said, actually, his name was Harish. I said, Harish, I've never encountered a question like this. I don't know the answer. But I'm coming back for a second lecture. It's a 2-part series. And by next week, I hope I will have an answer. And I could not think of an answer. And then suddenly, I remembered a story that was told to me, a story that happened to me and Arun Koladkar at Ezekiel. There was a Czech film festival in Bombay, and this was in Akashvani Theatre in South Bombay, beautifully air conditioned and completely empty, a really lovely theatre, run by the government.
Yeah.
It showed
Okay.
small films, it showed, sharp medical films, it showed new wave films, it showed international cinema. And so the Czech Film Festival, we booked like a full pass, like a 3-day pass. And we all went in and sat down for the first film, very excited. The first film started, and there were no subtitles. So I think someone in the audience, there were a few other people who shouted, "Hey, subtitles chala," right? Start the subtitles. And from the projectionist box, the voice kept saying, "Hey, nahi to kya chalaun?" Okay, so there were no subtitles.
Yeah.
And after about 5 minutes, everybody was clearing. The theater, everyone was going out, making noise, shouting, saying, I want my money back, you know. And I was about to get up when Arun Palatkar pulled me down and said, let's wait and see whether we can tell what the story is. So Arun Palatkar, Mr. Ezekiel, and I began to tell the story of the film to each other. Just from what we could tell was going on the screen. Just what we could tell. Like from the
Yeah.
person's face, from the Abhinaya, from the background. Oh, she's back at home. She traveled home. She's come home and she's very sad. She's saying to him, I want
Yeah.
a divorce. Oh no, she's saying, you want a divorce. It was great fun and it kept us so totally involved in watching the movie. There was not a passive moment. And there was a wonderful feeling that by halfway through the film, we were getting it. We were understanding. Okay, this is one level of it. The second level was there was this couple of Bengali boys who came to visit me when I was at Man's World with a huge bag of pirated DVDs which they had for sale. World cinema.
Okay.
So I bought some because I mean, I'm sometimes a very criminal minded person. So I bought some and I was sitting and chatting with them. And they said that what they were doing was taking this world cinema and a DVD player and a small TV and touring rural Bengal and showing people these, world classics of Czech cinema and French cinema and whatnot. And they would stand next to the side of the box out the TV and they would tell the story. They would say, this is what she's saying, this is what she's saying. And they said 8 times out of 10, the audience would at some point say, okay, stop it, we've got it. We'll understand the rest of the film and would follow the rest of the film themselves. And or even laugh at the appropriate moment. So look really, sad when things were going wrong. Now, I think the answer to that, and there is the secret. The secret is you are not reading, then rigor is really important. Rigor in your connection with the world, rigor in your connection with art, rigor in your connection with your response, so that you are totally aware, totally focused on what you are doing. This is for all of you who don't want to read, and I'm opening the door of the library and letting you out. Because no writer ever wants his book or her book or their book to be punishment. We don't want you to feel when you're sitting with our books that you would rather be doing anything else, but this stupid book is getting in my way and I just want to finish it so I can run out and do what I want to do. No author, no creator wants.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, here is a little bit of enlightened self-interest. I'm trying to tell you something that might make you interested in reading purely from the point of view of your own life. Okay, so here's imagine your mind is a large empty Maidan. You are completely clear and you are reading. As you read, you are walking through this Maidan and without knowing it, you are sowing seeds. Now, these seeds, like all seeds, will take time to grow. But 10 years after reading, when you walk through that same Maidan, you will find the Maidan has vanished. And what there is in the place is a forest, a huge, dense, lush forest full of all kinds of improbable trees. And the trees have fruit on them. And that fruit is ideas, your own ideas, for you to pick and to use any way you want. So you are reading in order to feed, to start, to plant, to sow your jungle of ideas, your forest of ideas for the future. This is a long game. It will not happen overnight. You will not read one book and by the end of the year have a forest of ideas. You will read many, many books and one day have a forest of ideas. But again, now, you don't like reading. I got it. I understand you don't like it. I'm asking you for half an hour of your life. Half an hour every day. Half an hour of your life is not much time. Okay? But I'm saying every morning we get up and we brush our teeth, and we have a bath, and we go for a walk, and we do some exercises, and we do some yoga. All this is for our body. What about our mind? How do we exercise our mind? How do we care for our mind? we care for our mind by reading. So I'm saying after you've exercised and done your yoga and done your, all your ablutions and cleaned your body and exercised your body and had a healthy breakfast, hopefully sit down and say to yourself, this is my brain exercise done, and read for half an hour. After you have finished the half an hour, put down the book, put down the newspaper, and say to yourself, I have invested time in the future. I believe in my future. I will one day be a great success is what I have done. And I have therefore invested today in my future. It'll make you feel very good about it. And do it half an hour every day for the rest of your life. Now, you will say, I want to be a photographer. Why should I be reading? I mean, I don't have to read. And here is a word from Singh, who said this at the Goa Arts and Literary Festival some 5 or 6 years ago. And she was giving the valedictory address or something. And a young person from the audience stood up and said, man, every day there are so many photographs. Everyone is photographing. How does one become a good photographer? And she said, simply read. Because the educated mind makes the seeing eye. So when your mind is alert, when your mind has been sharpened by reading, then your eye becomes even more focused and you become a better photographer. There is nothing that you will do in the world that will not require you to read. You say to yourself, oh, I'm going to become a doctor. Okay. I don't need to read. Yes, you do. When you get to medical college, you will discover that one textbook, Grey's Anatomy, one textbook out of 7 years of textbooks is more than 1,000 pages. You've got to read. You say, I'm going to become a lawyer. Why do I need to read? Have you seen the size of law books? Have you seen the law itself is words? And you have to read all those words. You have to understand them. You have to apply them. You have to even explain them to your clients. You have to learn to read and to understand and to explain. You say, I'm going to become an engineer. Engineers don't read. Sorry. First year, one textbook, 900 pages. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you will be reading. Why not start now? Make it a habit, because it is a habit of excellence. And if you cannot read because you're dyslexic, if you cannot read because you have a problem with reading, I understand that. Get audiobooks and listen to audiobooks, because that will be, but listen with focus and attention. Don't do it while you're doing something else. Sit quietly and just listen, because often audiobooks are used when you're in the car or you're exercising, and then only half of your mind is paying attention. The other half of your mind is occupied. Reading is an immersive activity and requires you to be fully present and conscious all the time. I hope that helps.
That's very helpful, sir. I also most of your works have revolve around the city of Bombay. I wanted to, and there are a lot of books that have cities as characters. For example, one of my favorite books is Insomniac City, which is about New York, a couple just living their days through New York, and it's a love letter, beautiful love letter to New York. There's another book, Lonely City, which is about the artists who developed and grew in New York. And again, it's sort of love letter to how lonely the city can be. And because most of your works revolve around Bombay, how do you, as a writer, judge the character of a city in it?
Okay. See, I think one of the lovely things about cities is that they become, if you are born in a city and growing up in a city and lived in a city. And what I find wonderful these days is that cities are not dominating the landscape of writing. Small towns are becoming very important and very vibrant and vital places for storytelling and sources for stories, which tells us one thing. The reason why a city is so fruitful for story making is because there are more people in it, and therefore there are more dreams in it, and more destinies involved, and more collisions between people, and more unlikely conurbations and events and circumstances where people come together and produce other kinds of chemistry and other kinds of I don't know, biology and everything else. Right? Everything like all of that is happening in a city. So to me, the city is not about buildings. It's not about location. So it's not about the fact that we are blessed in Bombay to have a river coming down, to meet a sea, and a patch of beautiful green, in the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and a little hill in Gilbert Hill, which is like, and you can walk down onto the beach and see volcanic flow, cold and dark as the rock, on which the polyfisher will not stand because it is holy and pure. And they understand that lava flowing into the sea is what gave them the beaches and what gave them their homes and what gave them the wildlife of the sea. So all that is lovely about the city, but that's not what turns me. What really excites me about my city is the people of the city. The fact that 300 new people come in every day, the fact that space is made for them in the most congested city in the world, the fact that, 25 million people strive and struggle and move and shift, get onto trains and buses and cling to the footboard and get somewhere and manage to make something out of it. And for all of us, in some ways, Mumbai is a mata. It is as much a baby. And I'm not talking about Mumbai baby itself. I'm talking about just the city as a source of livelihood, as a source of as a karma bhumi where we can all play out our destinies. And I think that to me is what the city really is. So it is every city is uh, a series of deeply connected villages. Okay? And now, unfortunately, with gated communities, patrolling, and such things, the villages are becoming disconnected. So in Delhi, for instance, when I walk through, say, a Jorbar or the diplomatic enclave, I get the sense of a policed environment where people are invited only if they are wearing the right clothes or if they are the servant class who come and keep the area as clean as possible and then must evaporate into the back. What I love about my city is that there will never be something like that because we are a naturally democratic city. So I have this lovely story, if I may tell you the story.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I went to a school, one of these new schools, international school, to give a talk to the students. And there was this guy, ushered into the principal's office. And the principal was a lovely woman from Delhi. And she was telling me all about how lovely the school was. And then it was time for us to go to the auditorium where I was going giving my talk.
Right.
And she said, come, we will go by lift because these are the kind of schools that are in skyscrapers. They have like 9 floors. So
Right.
the auditorium was on the 7th floor. So we arrived at the lift and there were 2 cleaning ladies standing in front of us. So the principal Sahiba said to the cleaning ladies, ये इनसे मिलिए, ये Jerry Pinto और माना हुआ लेखक and Sahitya Academy winner, etc., etc. He has come here to talk to our students and whatnot. And they both turned, looked at me, and nodded, smiled, did namaste, and stood there. Then the lift came in, they got it, and we got it. And when they got out at the 4th floor, Principal Saiba turned to me and said, I'm so sorry, Bombay culture. Now, what she meant was, in Delhi, where she came from, these 2 cleaning ladies would have stepped aside and let us go in the lift first. Because that is the culture of, of obsequiousness to people in authority. Bombay, just like, you're in line, please get in line, please get to the lift together. And I loved it. I said to her, ma'am, that's what democracy is. But they were in line, got it. She said, yes, but it's not nice. When we are having guests, it is not nice. Yes, take priority. And I thought, no, it is lovely. That's my city. Where the cleaning lady will get into the lift first, and the Sahitya Academy Award winner, the principal can come second. So the cleaning lady knows that she is as important to the ecosystem of the school as any author who's coming to talk to the students or any person. And that, I think, is actually a definition of human rights in a nutshell. That we are all important, we are all equal, we stay in the line and get in the line in order.
Before I ask my next question, I wanted to. You talked about democracy and everything. I just wanted to understand in today's climate where everything is so politically charged, can somebody who's trying to be a true artist, a true creator, can their art ever be truly non political in nature?
I don't think there is a non-political art at all. Okay, so say for
Yeah.
instance, you know, one of the interesting things that I learned when I was studying art, as in actual painting, was reading an
Mhm.
essay by a Marxist historian on Turner, the painter Turner, where he said there were never any poor people in Turner's paintings. And I thought, oh my God, yeah, true. It was always battleships, and it was always like, landscapes and sceneries and beautiful skies and lovely flowers and gardens and whatnot. Where were the poor people? So even when you choose to exclude the poor, even when you choose not to make a statement, even when you choose not to be political, you have made a political choice. It is a political choice not to be that. So even say, for instance,
Right.
someone who is writing about saying, the rich and the famous and
Hmm.
a champagne story with lots of Armani clothes and Mercedes Benzes and Louis Vuitton handbags and whatever it is
Right.
that I'm sure when anyone who is an actually deals in luxury goods is thinking, Jerry, what old fashioned names. But whatever. I'm saying, even if you write that kind of novel, right? And you're celebrating that kind of lifestyle, you're not puncturing it. You're not sending it up. You're just saying, okay, so and so is weeping because of we were talking back
Hmm.
uh, had red wine fall on it, and it's steep or whatever. And it's a terrible thing for her. It's still a political stake. And the person who buys that book and consumes that book is making a political statement about their choices. And I'm not saying, I mean, if it's that's the only kind of book you read, that's unfortunate. But if you read it with a large number of other books, it's fine. From time to time, I take time away from the serious reading that I do, and I read murder mysteries as well. I read, I have Reccos, PG Without from time to time about my soul.
Right.
I do a lot of escapist reading as well, and I'm not dissing escapist reading. It is a very important function of our pleasure in reading, because that is what reading is, no? Pleasure. Right? So we need to take pleasure, but we also need to take our reading. Uh, we need to make our reading various. So about 10 years ago, I made the decision that I would consciously make my reading various, which means I want to make sure that what books I come out and open the bag. It can't be only white men. Okay. However much white men write really lovely books. Okay. You have all the lovely books that I've read, but then it is true. But I want them to be black people. I want them to be Indian. My own. I want to be supporting and reading my fellow authors. I want to be reading women. I want to be reading transgender people. I want to be reading LGBTQIA literature. I want to be reading Dalit literature. I want to be reading Muslims. I want to be reading as many things as I can, because I do not believe in this politically charged atmosphere that we can afford to read in the bubble of our comfort zone. So I want to be constantly, and sometimes that can be very tiring. It can be exhausting and fatiguing because there's so much misery out there, and that misery needs to be documented. That we need to face it. We cannot look away, okay? Because that's I think the crime. But okay, so having said all that, that's on your consumption side. Now on the production side, when you are when you are writing, okay, all the fears are there. Okay. Nobody, I don't know. I feel that if anyone says that they are heroic enough to be able to write freely and without any thought of repercussions, they're possibly either they are not very socially aware of what's going on, or they're just like, I mean, there's something wrong, some psychological thing. I think all writers, all creative people labor with fear, but this is not new. Fear has been our steady companion for many centuries. It has always been there, right? Um, Robert Tyndale, to give you one simple example, who did the simple act of translating the Bible into English, was burned at the stake as a heretic in England back in the day,
Yes.
right? Galileo Galilei, who proved without doubt that the earth circles the sun, not the sun does not circle the earth, was sentenced to house arrest and made to recite from the Bible every day. And then at the end of family, he would say under his breath, "They push more," which means, and it's still new, like the sun. Whatever you may say from the Bible, the sun, the earth is still going out the sun. Okay,
Yeah.
but he did it in order not to, not to end up crucified or something horrible. Now notice, Vaani, that I'm using very systematically examples from a whole tradition of Christianity, so that I am actually only talking about my tribe. I'm not talking about your tribe. I'm not saying you guys. I'm saying we guys. This also
Yes.
is because fear is in the room with me. I'm speaking on a public platform. I hope many people will hear this. And now that fear is saying, Jerry, be careful. Right? Be careful and make sure that you are not saying anything about Hindus or Muslims or Sikhs or anybody else. Talk only about your Christian. Right? Now,
Yeah.
is this weak? Perhaps you could say it is weak. But what I'm saying is, it is a way of saying, making my point as clearly as possible, but also being as careful as possible. So we, as writers, we will take care of ourselves. We will protect ourselves. We will write with as much integrity as possible, but that integrity has an element of self-protectiveness. We talk to everybody about self-care except the writers. Writers are supposed to live on the razor edge. Writers are supposed to take the
Right.
risk. Writers are supposed to be brave. It wasn't in the job description.
Yes.
I mean, if you're a soldier, I mean,
Hmm.
like signing up when you're going to do Bharti as a soldier, presumably someone says, Bahadur ho na, you're brave na, otherwise don't join. No, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
writers. But sometimes writers are in this situation where where freedom of speech is imperiled, not from government so much as from the ordinary person on the street who often has not read your book, but has already
Absolutely.
made a decision that if someone else said that you have been rude to my community, then you must have been rude to my community. I do not need to read this book. I do not. I just know you are terrible. I know you are a sinner. I know you should be burned, and I'm going to send you death threats and rape warnings. How, how does that work? I don't know. But this is how it works now, right? This is the world every writer lives in. Forgive us sometimes for being a little, like, I mean, terrified. Okay. So, okay.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, now my take on this. It's a borrowed take, I'm afraid, but one learns from the wisdom of others, right? So there was a
Right.
painter called Philip Guston in America
Okay.
who said in a television interview, and this I did not see, but my friend Melly Gobay, the painter, told me about it and it stuck in my head, and I have always used it as a mantra ever since. So
Okay.
he says that when I start painting, everybody is in the room with me. The great masters are there. Leonardo da Vinci is there. Raphael is there. Donatello is there. They're all there. And my contemporaries are there. And the gallerists are there. And the buyers are there. And the ordinary public is there. My family is there. Everyone is in the room with me. And I start painting. And one by one, they leave the room. Until I am alone with my painting. And then I must leave the room. I love this. I love
Yes.
this idea that you start with the fear. The fear is in the room with you. The courage is in the room with you. The power is in the room with you. The desire to write is in the room with you. All these are in the room with you. And one by one they leave and you are writing. But I want to add one level to Philip Guston's, theory, which is once I have left the room and left my book there, then someone must enter the room again. A new someone who has never encountered this work before and must then, by encountering the work, make it a book. It becomes only when the first reader has read it and has put it down and it has started a conversation inside his head or her head or their head, inside their
Right.
hey, that conversation may be, what a lovely book that was, which we want all of our readers to say.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
often, when they say, what a rubbish, nonsense piece of work, their brains are much more alive at that point, much more desirous of connection, much more desirous to fight with us, to wrestle with us. And perhaps out of that, in the best possible circumstances, a dialogue grows. The dialogue is maybe in the form of a review, where they write a review, and maybe we start responding or not, we just read at home or write a letter back or whatever. It could even be another book saying Jerry Pinto has said this, but it is wrong, and here is what is right. That's the best form of books, creating other books and creating dialogues and creating discussions and waking people's minds up and making them think. So we will never live without fear. There is no Indian writer who starts writing a sex scene, for instance, however necessary in his book, and does wonder, what will my family think when they are reading this scene?
Okay, yeah.
However broad-minded your family is, I think there is always fundamentally that worry. Okay? And if you put a sex scene in your book, the nice members of your family simply ignore it as if it didn't exist. And the nasty ones will say, what, you did that or what? That's the kind of like thing that goes on all the time.
Yeah. I have so many questions. First of all, you said this thing where, and this is a question I wanted to ask you genuinely, where you said the artist has to leave the room eventually. And how, and everybody knows once you get out of your own way, you eventually end up creating something that's actually beautiful because you no longer are judging yourself for doing something. And perhaps it's more, you are not, perhaps it's more natural, but how does one actually truly achieve that? How do you get out of your own way to create something?
Okay, I don't know, there was a book long ago that I read, and I've really forgotten the author and the title because it wasn't much. There wasn't much in the book other than this one line, which I loved, which said the cure for love is only, there is only one cure for love, disappointed or when your heart broken, which is to fall in love again. That's the only cure. So I always say when you have finished another book now, when you finish the book, start another book at the end of that book. So that you just, when you send the manuscript off, you plunge into the next book. Okay, now
Right.
you're busy with this book again, so you're not even thinking too much about that one. And when it comes back, you think about interruption. Because often when you send, okay, the moment when I leave the room, technically, is when I finish writing a draft, finish that, rewriting the draft, rewriting everything, making it as good as possible, and then you send it off to the editor, right? And now you start with your next work. Immediately you start your next work. Because if you stop for even 10 minutes, you begin to, oh my God, I have to tell him, don't read that one. I'm going to do it again. I want to change this. I want to change that. I want to edit this. I want to edit that. It's something like what panic-stricken moments start. So leave that alone and start work with the next one. Okay? The next one will then obsess you. And of course, your editor will come back and will say something like, oh, good work, but you need to do some work. Pick go. Now suddenly the first reader has actually read the book and says good work, but you need to do some work with it. The response is, no, but it's perfect. And if you think logically, you started the next book because you wanted to keep tinkering with that book because you knew it was not perfect. Now when someone else tells you it's not perfect, you get angry. But that's how writers are. I mean, you're just like, oh, I understand like that. Maybe other people are a lot more mature and dignified about it. But I get very angry when everyone tells me anything is wrong with my book, and then I want to tell them to do everything books you wrote. But then you settle down, you say, be dignified, be sensible, look at what is being said. And if you can trust the editor that you're working with, then you must actually work on that trust relationship and say, okay, you don't want, we'll go with this, I'll go with this, I'll accept this and work with it. Right? So the only way to leave the room is to enter another room quickly and find another empty canvas there and start working on that so that, at least there is something in your mind. Because writing a book is like, I don't know, it's like having a living presence in your life. Right? This constantly, when I was writing the education of Yuri, I was thinking about Yuri all the time. I was thinking about his reading list. I was thinking about his responses. I was thinking about his friends. I was thinking, should I flesh them out? I was thinking about where he's going. I'm thinking about why he's not going north in the city. How little he goes into the north of the city. He's all the time in South Bombay. Is he a South Bombay boy? What's going on in your head? Now, when you've sent Yuri off, okay, there's a Yuri shaped hole in your life. It's like a friend has gone to a foreign country or something, and you just like bereft. So you'd better start another thing before you start missing it too much. That's how I.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like blankness and terror, and that's when I learned you have to plunge into another book. Otherwise, you're going to be lying there as though you've been shipwrecked, and you're lying on a beach, and there's only a pair of skates, ice skates in a box. That's all you've got to look out is.
Right. But eventually, whatever we see of the artist is the art. We see eventually the expression has come out. The book is what we get. But for artists and creators, how important is the process for you, or how important is keeping the process healthy? Do you think it's okay? We always talk about the tortured artist.
Okay, so there's level at which self-expression is one of all of our fundamental needs. Right? We
Yeah.
really, most 98% of us, I think, want to be heard, want to say.
Mm.
There are some people who are genuinely quiet, reserved, and don't want to share. It's like you have to force at least a single expression out of them. These are largely
Right.
women, I think. But most times, most people want to be heard. And this is why social media becomes such a platform for everybody. Everybody has a chance to be heard. Right? I mean, and whatever you want to put out there, right? You want to say, look, my breakfast. Okay, you can put it out. And you can say,
Yeah.
look, a new poem I wrote this morning. You can put it out. You can say, look, I danced. See me dance. Okay, you can put it out there. That, all this efflorescence, this blooming of Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Falana Nimaka and I don't know what, all of it is self-expression. See, here I am being given the opportunity to talk to you, to tell you what I think, and you're listening with attentiveness and with care. You know, it's a gift that I've been given, that someone wants to listen to me. But everyone wants to be listened to, right? So fundamentally, there is that obviously there is inside us a deep desire to be heard, and therefore creativity in that sense is LB, is a healthy thing. And people will tell you, psychologists these days will tell you to journal, to keep a journal, to exteriorize, to say it at least. If you can't say it to the person, say, suppose your mother has deeply hurt you, but now you think she won't be able to take that pain of listening. They'll say, go in the bathroom and say it aloud. Say it somewhere so it's not stuck in your throat, stuck in your head. Just say it, okay, so that it's out into the world. Got it. Now, on the other hand, look at the lives of creative people. Okay, how many poets have killed themselves? How many people have lapsed into alcoholism, drug dependence, etc., etc. So it exists of creativity sometimes, okay, where you're constantly living in that vulnerable zone of self-exposure and self-critique, because I don't think anyone can hurt the creative writer as much as that creative writer can hurt themselves or herself or himself by stabbing at each word, looking carefully, examining in detail. I don't want to talk about like Sylvia Plath or Dylan Thomas or any of them. I'm saying this is also an occupational hazard. It's not just the world that's against us. We are often ranged against ourselves. And with the myth of creativity, that you stay up all night writing, and you need alcohol, you need drugs, and you need experience, and you need to live at the end of your notes, and you must burn the candle of both ends. Self-care falls to the end of the line. So I often say, if you want a long, healthy, creative life, You have to be exciting inside your brain and boring in your life. So while your brain is ranging everywhere, you need to have 3 meals a day. You need to make sure you're getting your fiber. You need to drink a lot of water. You need to do some
Right.
exercise.
Yeah.
You need to go to sleep at times. So art is therapy. Art is cure. Art is remedy. Art is medicine. But too much of it is also disastrous. And taking a spoonful of art and then taking 5 gulps of the myths of art and the romantic myths of art after that spoon of art is disastrous for your health. Because,
Hmm.
I mean, then it's not healthy at all to accept the
Yeah.
myths. You need to have a lot of, you need to try everything. You don't have to try it. Like, try some
Yeah.
things, try them in
Yeah.
moderation, all that. And that sounds so boring, right? If you're
Hmm.
thinking of Kurt Cobain and you're thinking of, I don't know, um, the people who we know
Yeah.
these people who lived at the edge of their um, at the edge of their
20s.
nerves, right?
Yeah.
And gave us great art, true, but
Yeah.
burnt out,
True.
false. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you ask somebody, so you wrote a book of light, you collected the stories, then you also translated When I Hid My Caste. And there's another book that's affected me a lot. It's called Dear Zari. It's again a collection of stories about Afghani women and what happened to them, 13 short stories. When you're reading such books, it's obviously very cathartic for us to read them. It is sad, but how as a writer do you snap out of it, because you have to leave this grief in the room once you're done with the book? How do you leave that grief behind, or does it ever go away?
Okay, when I was translating Baluta, the second book that I translated, which is Baluta is Dayapavar's seminal autobiography. It is an
Yes.
autobiography that produced many other Dalit autobiographies, and in a way,
Yeah.
it sort of gave many Dalit authors the courage to think that their lives mattered, were significant and important enough to actually be captured in a book. And Baluta, it starts with, I'm saying this because Baluta starts with a discussion between two Dayapavas. Dayapavar divides himself into two people, and one person is saying to the other, why are you writing this? What is the purpose of writing this? Why are you shaming your community? Why are you talking about your life like you are, it was some
Mhm.
series of unhappy events? What is it? What nonsense is this? And the other one is replying to it. And literally, that discussion is a way in which he's producing the bridge on which he will walk. He's trying to persuade himself that his life matters. Okay? None of us have this problem. And as I was translating this book, I was growing more and more depressed. And one day, my sister happened to be in the room, and she said, "What's the matter?" So I said, "This book is really difficult. I mean, to translate because it's affecting me emotionally." And she said, "You're translating the book, right?" He wrote it. And more than that, he lived it. Get a grip. And I thought, yeah, Dayapawar got through living that life. He got through the writing of it. He produced a masterwork. You have been given the unique privilege of being the first translator of this book into English.
Yeah.
Get a grip, I said to myself. And though I would often slip again and again into sadness and into the feeling that, of huge anger at such injustice and really empathy. Empathy is a gift to all of us as human beings, and it prevents us from doing the worst things that we could do, I think, to each other. But it is also the gift that tears open our skin and allows us to feel things that other people have felt. And when empathy got in the way, I often felt that it was too much to do, too much to handle. And then I would say to myself, he wrote it, he lived it, do your work, get on with
Right.
it. And I will try to do it again. That's how you get. That's what you get.
Mhm.
At least I got through the translating of the Award and Baburao Babu and Eknath Award and even Malika Amarshid's books. All these were very difficult books because they were very challenging. but they were masterworks. Such powerful works that I feel deeply sorry that more people haven't watched them, that they haven't just become like everybody should be reading these books.
Right. And you wear a lot of hats. You're a translator, you're a writer, you are also a journalist, a poet, you are also a maths tutor. But what is the thing that brings you the most joy?
See, I think straightforwardly there is okay. How should I put this? Let's start with the beginning. The beginning was the most joy I ever felt was seeing my name on the spine of a book the first time. It was
Yeah.
not a great book. It was called Surviving Women by Jerry Pinto.
Yeah.
But no, I shouldn't say things like that about my own work. It was not the greatest. It wasn't. It's never going to make the greatest works of Jerry Pinto. But it is a book
Okay.
that I started with. I loved, and it gave me a unique gift. It gave me the gift of friendship and of a relationship with an editor that has nurtured me over 25 years. That is Ravi Singh, my editor. And it was his first book also with publishing. It was my first
Yeah.
book as well. So we were both starting out raw and together. It was great. It was lovely.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to Surviving Women for that entire moment. So I don't, so that is the joy. Okay? The name on the spine, each time it comes, it's like, here I am again. Okay? Very stupid, I know, very egotistical. That's like the sexual joy. The work is not often a joy. The work is work. The work sometimes is like, get on with it, Jerry. And I have to often talk to myself like a child. I say, okay, Jerry, after 5 lines, even if you write that today, that's better than writing 0 lines. So, fine. Come, 5 lines. 5 lines for mommy, 5 lines for daddy, 5 lines for auntie, 5 lines for granny, 5 lines for oddly enough, sometimes those days when you have written against the grain seem to be good writing. The days when they are flowing, the words are just coming and you're saying, slow down, slow down. I have to capture each of these words. Wait, 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 that idea is running away. Realize that you're writing badly. Okay, so that's another level of it. But those are days
Okay.
of joy also when it seems like it's flowing freely. But on the bank of the river of the flowing freely words is another Jerry Pinto saying, Jerry, these words, they are coming easily. Just be careful. It might be like your purpley side come. Okay, so that's another joy. The third joy, I think, is the reader who comes up to you and says, the book of joy saved my life, or I really felt Emma the Baker was something that I was could relate to, or Murder in Mahi, my gosh, it's so well researched. How do we do that research? Or Educational Yuri took me back to my college days. Those are lovely moments. Like the whole day can
Right.
be goldy because someone came and said that. Just as much as the whole days can be bluey if someone comes up and says, why did you write that? You're such a good writer. Why did you do that? And you have to say, because that's who I am. That's who I am. I'm never going to please you all the time.
Yeah.
I only please me all the time. Okay, sometimes I let me down very badly. But the central joy, okay, in every one of the hats that I wear, that central joy is that I get to play with language. Okay. In a very deep way. It's like when you're translating, it's even deeper. Okay. Poetry, even deeper
Right.
than that. Translating poetry, like really, that is like sludge war. Every single, every single thing is like, it's just a slog. Okay. But who, who is so lucky as to get up in the morning and say, all day, I will do what I love. What I love. Because I started a
Right.
relationship with language really young. Okay, when I was a word collector. I would like I thought I had no idea what a dictionary was. So I thought I should make a dictionary for people. How they explain things. I was 4.5 years old. Okay. So I started a book in which I wrote things and I wrote my own words also. Okay. Like
Wow.
fangry. I had invented a word called fangry, which was when you're very hungry and you're angry because you're hungry. Because my mother often would say Jerry gets, when he is not fed, he gets angry rather than saying he's hungry. Okay, so I invented fangry. And I thought I would explain words to the world. I discovered them in dictionaries. I was very disappointed that someone had got my idea. Oh, but so I very early. Now when I look back, I can see that as my my inauguration of my association with words somewhere, my
Yeah.
language thing. And I love words in other languages. Okay. Loved them. I wanted to learn every language that I heard. I wanted to learn everything. Then I went to school and they beat language. Always.
How would you define success for you as a writer when you can't really depend always on the critics because sometimes the words are too harsh and sometimes it just isn't. How do you define your own success?
Okay. So it's very difficult to say because no false modesty here. Then you go back home and you have to write again. So a friend said, well, she got very angry. She said, you're a big writer and they
Yeah.
shouldn't treat you like this as a last minute replacement for somebody else who dropped out. So I was very pleased by the idea that I was a big writer. But then you come home and you start working again. And there is nothing like writing something from, like, starting a new novel and working on it to remind you that you're just a writer. The big writer, the successful writer is outside the room. Okay, that's a perception from the world. They'll count the number of awards. They say, oh, but he is also. Everywhere I go, they say Sahitya Academy award winning writer. And those are metrics of success for the world. For the writer, the metric of success is what am I working on right now? And there is no guarantee that you're writing well right now. See, that's what I think, accountants are so lucky. They finish like in it tallies, on both sides it tallies. They know they've done a good job. They're home. They go home. They have a cup of tea. They say, "Arey, kya hai kya?" And they settle down happy. A writer comes home and someone asks, "How did it go?" And you have no idea whether you
Yeah.
wrote well or you wrote bad. So you don't know from day to day. You don't know whether you're writing well or bad. All you know is that you are writing. Okay? So you're literally living on faith. And that may be what causes the stress.
But before you go, I just wanted to ask about your books or movies or any pieces, forms of art that you'd like to recommend to the people who watch this interview.
Okay. With the books, I would say please start reading a lot more in translation from across the world. Okay, because if you're reading only English fiction and only kind of fiction, then imagine that the world is a buffet. The world of reading is a buffet, and every day you are eating chicken masala, or every day you are eating gobi manchurian if you're vegetarian. Okay. Now, gobi manchurian may be very good. It may be made wonderfully, may be different every day, but it is still only gobi manchurian. Why not try the next? There's a dam aloo next to it. Try that. And there is a baba ganoush next to that. Try that also. If you can be so wide and various in your eating, try and be wide and various in your reading as well. So read books in translation. Read books by women. You will be surprised if you do a little analysis of the books you read last year. How few books you will have read by women, even if you are a woman, and even if you are a feminist, just because there are so many books written by women. I would say go backwards into our history of Asia. Start with The Tale of Genji by the lady Murasaki, novel written in the 11th century, great novel, big voluminous novel. Talks about older novels, which means that there was a novel tradition in Japan, which like we have ignored currently. Read the Pillow Book of Sai Shanagan. Read from the countries around us. There's a lovely, great tradition in Sri Lanka of great writing. Gunabardhan, Shyam Selvadurai. Read from Nepal. Manju Thapa, Smriti, Ravindra has just written a lovely book called The Woman Who Lived on Trees. Read biographies of women. There's a great one called Dan Cutton's Caste Women by Geeta Ramaswamy. Read from the smaller presses. Make sure look at the spines of books and make sure you're reading Women Unlimited. Make yourself an eclectic reader and see how much your taste sharpens, improves, how much your worldview expands and improves, just because of the fact that you consciously decided that you will read a Muslim reader, a Dalit reader, a woman reader, a disabled person reader, a reader who is non-white, a reader who is also white, but not from the Anglophone tradition, but from, say, I don't know, Prague. Okay. And
Yeah.
above all, enjoy yourself. Make sure that you're reading what you love at least 50% of the time, and make sure that you read what you need 50%.
Nice. And do you also have an item of food or a dish that you'd like to recommend to everybody?
See, my comfort food is really sad. It is rice, dal, boiled egg, uh, mango pickle, and papad. But you have to make
Yeah.
everything into one mulch. Like I call it a pie. At the end of it, you just squish everything together so that it's glutinous mass, except for the papad. And then you keep the
Okay.
papad on the side, and you break bits of the papad, and you use it like literally like a chapati. And you pick up
Okay.
bits of the pie and you put it together. And I have it.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I wish I could say something like, uh, this great dish that I tried, Aglio, Peli, Polia. But no, I'd say like,
No.
I'd say
But
reach back into the time that you were happy and find that food that you ate when you were happy. And it might help you bring that happiness back. You remember?
nice.
Home, smell, aroma, mouthfeel, all of it together has a great effect on memory. And memory has a great effect on taking us back to where we were happy. It's called nostalgia,
Yeah.
and it is like misused, but it is a glorious thing when you use it in small amounts of percent.
But this is great, Jerry. Thank you for doing this episode with us. And I had such a lovely time. I hope we can meet sometime and then we can record another episode with you for the channel. But
Sure.
before we go, could you just request everyone who'll watch this video to like, share, and subscribe to Kitabi Cabins?
Jerry Pinto, what would be lovely is if you would like, share, and subscribe Kitabi Cabins to all the book lovers you know, and all the people who are also like on the fence about books, so that you bring them on the side of the book lovers. Enjoy reading, enjoy listening, enjoy viewing.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. It was amazing. It's always amazing to have you on the channel.